When it comes to fantasy baseball, there's two topics that people always want to talk to me about, and it's always prospects and players they need to stash on their IL. So today I have 5 prospects and I have 5 injured players that you need to add to your waiver wires and possibly to your team on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Of course I did.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, and you can find me on Twitter at DomMartinoFB. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us as well. But guys, what's most important, to help put you over the top and give you that competitive edge in your fantasy baseball league is joining Matt and I on the Subtext platform, because through Subtext it's an in-depth personalized experience where you're going to be getting text messages and alerts right to your phone. Nobody else in the industry is offering you that. And you know what? When we do our waiver wire episodes, you're going to get a little bonus. You're going to get all of those players ranked. So you should know how you should prioritize those players when you're picking them up. And also, you're going to get those prospect call-up notifications right to your phone through a text messaging alert. When Roman Anthony, Andrew Painter, Nick Kurtz, and the rest of them boys get called up, you're going to get those notifications before anybody else in your league. So you're able to add them to your roster super fast. So once again, join Matt and I on the Subtext platform. You can find the link in the bio if you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And all right, guys, let's get into it. Got 10 great names for you. We're going to switch it up a little bit this week. We're going to go with actually the injured players to stash first. Then we're going to get into the prospects, and we got some great prospects so you're going to want to lock on for the whole episode today. Let's start with one of my guys. If you are, new around here, or, and if you're not, you definitely know I love this guy. It's Ivan Herrera of the St. Louis Cardinals. He's a catcher, had a huge start to the year before going down with an injury. 7 games for Herrera played this year, 21 at-bats, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 4 homers. He had a 3 home run game as well right before he went down. 11 RBIs. He has 3 walks to 5 strikeouts and a 381 batting average. Now, when it comes to Herrera, we always knew he was going to be good for batting average. Never thought he was going to be able to tap into the power, to this degree. As I mentioned, 4 home runs this year. 3 of them came in 1 game. And back last year in 2024, Herrera only hit 5 home runs through 72 games. So if Herrera is able to tap into this power, I mean, you're looking at a guy that could potentially hit 18 to 20-ish home runs, give you that close to 300 batting average, if not 300, give you some runs, give you some RBIs. Towards the end, before I shouldn't even say before the end, before the injury there with Herrera, they moved him up in the lineup in the doubleheader on April 6th. He hit second and, looked like he was, rocking and rolling. Hit the 3 home run game on April 2nd, had 6 RBIs that day. Was really just on his way to, be a number one catcher for fantasy baseball purposes. 48% owned on Yahoo. Once again, it's the knee issue for Herrera. The Cardinals got him going through some workouts. Hasn't been cleared yet for baseball activities. The expected absence was about a month. I think it might bleed over a little bit more than that. So you might be looking at Herrera being out for 5 weeks, potentially 6. A little bit of a lengthy absence, but I think he's going to be worth it by the time he gets back. Might take him a little bit to ramp up and, get fully back to where he was. Because if I recall correctly, I think Herrera was having a pretty good spring training. Don't have those numbers in front of me, but I'm pretty sure from what I recall, he was at least doing solid during spring training. So Herrera, it's somebody I think we need to stash on our ILs while we can, because I think as soon as he gets closer, people are going to, be talking about him a little bit more. The buzz of that 3 home run game is going to be brought back up. We might see that 48 jump to 60-ish, maybe not even, maybe like 55. I'd say get on it now, because once he comes back, if he's swinging that hot bat, everyone's going to want to pick him up. If you have a decent amount of IL spots, you're not dealing with the injury bug yet, I think Ivan Herrera is a pretty safe stash. Let's move on to this next guy, though. Let's talk about the Yeti, Spencer Arrighetti. Guy was off to an okay start, had a really good first start, if I recall correctly. That second start is where he got banged up. And his last 13 starts last year, I think it might have even been 15 starts, he really shined. Through the first 2 this year, it was a 5.59 ERA, 9.2 innings, 8 strikeouts, and an 0.93 whip for the Yeti. I really like him. He has a good repertoire. I think he could be solid for fantasy purposes, especially what he showed down the stretch last year. The Astros themselves, off to a little bit of a tough start here. I really think they could rebound. I think wins are going to be a stat that Arighetti could supply as well. He did win his first start, as I mentioned. The second start where he got banged up, only went 3.2, got hit around a little bit, was probably dealing with the injury throughout the start. But once again, he went out against a tough Mets team that's been pretty good so far this year. Actually been pretty solid. 6 innings on March 29th for Arrighetti, got the win, 5 strikeouts, only gave up 1 earned run. Really didn't allow much damage on the bases either, to be honest. So, that's where that whip shined through. I really think he's going to be solid, here in 2025 once he comes back from injury. How long is he supposed to be out for? I know it's going to be at least a little bit here. It's not going to be something quick. It looks like about 6 weeks. So we're talking about the end of May, beginning of June. Could be a little bit of a sneaky addition to your rotation, as we're going into the All-Star break. It's almost like, when a team trades for a guy, or a team has a guy come back from injury, rather, and it's just a sneaky addition. You really didn't have to pay anything for him. You could probably pick him up with the waiver wire right now. Arrighetti's only 42% owned. And I do want to talk a little bit about what Arrighetti did down the stretch last year. I believe it was the last 9 starts. Yep, the last 9 starts for Arrighetti. He had a 2.84 ERA. During that time, he had 50 strikeouts. 50 innings pitched with 63 strikeouts. Batters hit 233 against him that time. He only allowed about 15 walks, so that was pretty solid as well. The whip was like a 102. So Arrighetti is a guy that once he really gets rocking and rolling, even if you go back to his last 15, he had some good starts there. But you look at August 4th against the Rays, it was a 12 strikeout game, only 1 earned run, 6 innings. After that, followed it up with a 13 strikeout performance Arrighetti did against Boston. A couple starts after that, 7.2 innings, 11 strikeouts from Arrighetti, with no earned run. So he was just really, really good down the stretch. I think he can carry it in, to this year. Injury kind of threw him off. Like I said, had a very good first start, the Yeti did. 42% owned on Yahoo. I think you should add him now. Let's sneak in this next guy real quick. Brayan Bello of the Boston Red Sox. Not really on every type of league play here. This is your shallower leagues. This is our guys that are playing in like 15 mans, they're AL only, stuff like that. He's coming back from injury, has been struggling in the minors. Not going to hide it from you guys. But he's been striking guys out. He's been over that K per 9. I think that's where the upside lies here with Bello. Boston team themselves haven't been playing great. Not going to be super impactful in the wins category unless this team could start hitting, unless somebody besides Campbell and Story could, Willie or Brayan could start doing something over there, for this Boston team. Bello might not be too great in the wins category, but he is only 15% owned on Yahoo, which is a nice little sweet spot for our deeper league players here. He has that prospect pedigree, had some really good seasons down in the minors that I'm going to highlight here in a second. But interesting, just an interesting type of player, decent pitch repertoire, just needs to, really nail down, the control and everything here, right? So last year, Bello, 30 starts, 4.49 ERA, it's all in the bigs with Boston, 162 innings, 153 strikeouts, 136 whip. Didn't really figure out that strikeout upside, but it seems like he's been working on it. It's working for him in the minors. Right now in the minors, it's been 3 starts, 9 innings, 14 strikeouts. So it's been there. It's been there. And then let's talk about a little bit what he did in the minors as well. We will look back to 2022, 17 starts, 2.44 ERA for Bello, 96 innings and 129 strikeouts. The year before that, it was 95 innings with 132 strikeouts for Bello. So the kid's got some upside in the strikeout category if that's what you're looking for. 15% owned, once again, Bello, Boston Red Sox starting pitcher. So you know what? I'm going to talk about a couple Milwaukee Brewers starting pitchers here, a couple of teammates. And then after that, we'll move into the prospects aspect of this episode. And like I said, I got 5 prospects that you do not want to miss. So guys, stay locked on. And all right, folks, I want to talk to you guys about my friends over at Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey, the playoffs are heating up, and there's no better way to, test your sports knowledge and turn it into rewards than with Prize Picks. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, of course it's with Prize Picks. And, you simply pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even combine players across sports, basketball, hockey, baseball, and more for chances to win up to 2,000 times your cash. And guys, with the basketball playoffs, basically right here, always love me some Luka Doncic. You always get great odds for the points, easily over 28 points every time with Luka. And then, Jason Tatum, love him on the points too, has been hitting, a lot of points, totals this year. Rebounds too, definitely can grab you over 8 rebounds anytime out. Jason Tatum, once again, was Boston Celtics, right? And what I love is how easy it is to set your lineup in under 60 seconds, super fast. Prize Picks even, they run cool promos like Taco Tuesday, where they discount player projections up to 25% for even more value. And payouts are fast, safe, and secure. So download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And all right, guys, real quick, just want to talk about it one more time. Give Matt and I a chance on the Subtext platform. I promise you guys are not going to regret it, right? So when you join up on Subtext, like I told you, you're going to get those instant notifications right to your phone through text messaging alerts when those prospects like Roman Anthony, Nick Kurtz, Andrew Painter, and so many more get their call to the big leagues. And you're going to beat all your league mates to the punch with those notifications, through Subtext from Matt and I, when you get those prospects, right? And it's going to give you that competitive edge. Also, when we do our waiver wire ranking episodes, you're going to get all of those names that we talked about ranked, so you can prioritize who you need to pick up for your fantasy baseball team, right? And even with that, you're able to get on there, talk to Matt and I. There's no other spot in the industry where anyone's offering that personal touch that Matt and I have on there. So you know what, you're going to be able to jump on there, ask us about trades that you need, ask us, send us your picture of your waiver wire, ask us who we think you should pick up. And then even if your team's struggling, you say, hey, Dom, Matt, can you help me figure this out? And Matt and I are always going to do our best to help you win those Locked On Fantasy Baseball Championships in your fantasy baseball league this year. So join us on Subtext. The link is in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. All right, let's jump back into this, guys. Like I said, I got a couple of teammates up here next for you, and I'm going to start with Nasty Nestor Cortez. I will preface, it's an elbow injury. It's an elbow injury, so it's never a safe guarantee. But Nestor is a guy who could be impactful, and he showed that in his second start. I will talk about the first start, right? It was a tough one for Nestor. Went out there against the Yankees in the stadium. I sat him. I was a Nestor Cortez owner, still am in a couple of spots, right? Sat him, knew the Yankees were going to have the scouting report on him. Did I think it was going to be as bad as it was? Absolutely not. But you know what? That was to be expected for the most part. So Nestor Cortez had to go out there a second time, prove himself, and he did. On April 3rd, Nestor Cortez pitched against Cincinnati, got 6 innings, the win, struck out 6, no earned runs, and kept the base runners to a limited amount. So looked really good in that second start. Got banged up after that. It's going to be a little bit here. It's going to be a little bit here for the elbow injury for Nestor. We're looking at, going to be a couple weeks before he's up and throwing again. We're talking, depending on what happens here, because he got the PRP injection. So we're not really 100% sure on how it's gonna play out for Nestor. But Nestor himself said, that he described his level of concern pretty low. Nothing's been mapped out yet, right? I think he's a stash. He's only 21% owned on Yahoo. He's a stash in your onlys, your 15-mans, those leagues where you just can't find any starting pitcher, and you might need somebody, down the stretch who could be pretty solid or useful. That's where we're grabbing Nestor Cortez. I have him stashed in one of my deeper leagues still. Going to hold him until I get any, firm news on this elbow, right? But otherwise, I think it might be a sneaky ad, right? Because if it turns out to be nothing, he's back in a month or so and he's rocking and rolling. It could be really beneficial to, fantasy teams. So proceed with caution here with Cortez, but I do like the potential upside here. Let's move on to his teammate, his buddy, somebody I was big on last year, Big Tobias Myers. He's on his way back. Potential return is next week. I think it's pretty much guaranteed unless this next start in the minors goes bad for Tobias Myers. He's projected to throw about roughly 65, 70 pitches in his next outing. Obviously those Brewers can use him out there, dealing with few different injuries in the rotation. His last outing, it was 3 runs over 5 innings. Hasn't been great in his stint in the rehab assignment. I do like him though. It's interesting here with Tobias Myers. Had a sneaky good season last year where, as a 25-year-old, he went out there, made 25 starts, had a 3 ERA, 138 innings pitched with 127 strikeouts and a 1.17 whip. Now, Tobias Myers isn't somebody I think is going to be like super useful. Might not repeat those numbers that he did last year, but could he be useful for fantasy? Sure. Had some good seasons down in, or had a good season down in the minors in 2024. And it looks like he's actually been okay down in the minors so far. 2 rehab starts, 3.24 ERA, 8 innings, 3 strikeouts, 1.32 whip. So obviously the whip is something we're going to worry about, but Tobias Myers himself is pretty decent at limiting runs at least. So 6% owned for Tobias Myers. I'd probably take a shot on him in deeper formats, the onlys, obviously. He's going to be back sooner than Nestor. Myers versus Bello is a conversation. To be honest, I think whoever goes out there has the first better start is who I'm prioritizing. But you know what? That's easier said than done. I do like me Tobias Myers, though. I think he can be sneaky good. But before we move on into the second half of the episode where we're talking prospects, right? And I have a bunch of great names for you. I'll give you the first one. We're going to talk some Roman Anthony today. Check in on him, see how he's been doing. Then we also got a couple of Dodgers. So, Dodgers prospects are always fun and interesting to talk about. Those names and more coming up next. And all right, guys, come on. I got to talk to you about my friends over at Game Time. And, there's nothing better than catching an MLB game live, right? You hear the crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the popcorn. Come on. You can't beat it. And if you're looking to go to the game last minute, Game Time makes getting tickets easier than ever. With their last minute deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee, Game Time really takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop, as the time gets closer to the game, meaning you can score incredible deals, and that's always the best, right, guys? We always want the best bang for our buck. So on those spontaneous game nights, me and my girlfriend the other day, we were like, we really just wanted to, get some tickets for a good price, and we did it with Game Time. They had unbeatable prices, which meant more money for food, and if you know me, love my merch, had to grab me some merch too, and Game Time helped me do that. that. With the Game Time Picks feature, this makes finding the best deals effortless. It filters out the fluff and highlights the top discounts in the stadium. And come on, guys, they give you the seat view before you buy. Personally love that. I can preview my exact seat before I purchase, and there's no bad surprises when I get to the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And all right, guys, let's hop back into it. And I teased it up top. We're doing it. We're talking about the number one prospect in all of baseball. We're talking about Roman Anthony. So we're checking in, right? We've talked about him, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago leading up to the season, right? We wanted to make sure you guys all knew the name. Hoping you guys all know the name by now. Come on, Roman Anthony, number one prospect in all of baseball, Boston Red Sox outfielder. If you don't know, now you know. He's really good. Off to an okay start. Last time we checked in on him, he was killing it in spring training, had a big 2-home run game, one of the first games of the season. Might have been his first game, if I remember correctly. But, through his first 12, Roman Anthony is hitting .256 down there in AAA with 7 runs, couple doubles, a triple, the 2 aforementioned home runs, 7 RBIs, 10 walks to 15 strikeouts. Not too bad. Only 1 steal though, so not showing off those speedy legs yet. Hit .291 last year across 119 games, 93 runs, 18 homers, 65 RBIs, 79 walks to 127 strikeouts, stole 21 bags. Just to give you an idea of what the kid's got. Could be good. Could be really good. 6'3", 200 pounds, plus power, plus hit tool. About average run tool, decent in the field, and he's got upside. He's really got upside. He's growing into it. He's been one of the fastest rising prospects over the past couple of years. I like him. I think he's, last time I checked, which was not too long ago, up to 29% owned on Yahoo. Tough, man. It's tough because that Boston lineup it's not bad, like in the sense of the results that they're getting, right? Like when you see the names on paper, it's not like there's anyone that's jumping out to you specifically, that, you're really jumping out that you want to get rid of. Maybe Rafi, Ceddanne Rafaela, Campbell's been on fire. Willie Abreu, when they let him play, has been great. Alex Bregman, mixed bag. And just the Devers and Duran are all-stars, so they're not going anywhere. It would be interesting, right? I think it might take an injury. It might take Boston just looking in the mirror and saying, we want to make a change, something along the lines of that. So bottom line here with Roman Anthony, right, is I think if you have a league where you play where you have an extra NA spot or you have a deep bench, probably talking about 6 bench spots or more, and you feel like, because after, 2, it depends on how you guys played that first week, 2, potentially 3 weeks so far into the fantasy baseball season. It's just really, it's really tough to say. You have to know your team, right? There's been definitely plenty of times where I've stashed high-end prospects and it's worked out. It definitely been times where it worked out, the other way, where I wound up just holding the bag and it wasn't a good bag, right? So with Anthony, I think there's a better chance that he works out than not. I just can't put a firm timetable on when I see him being called up. It could be a month, could be a couple of weeks if somebody gets hurt, could be, the All-Star break if Boston gets it together and they're rocking and rolling and all these guys start hitting. I think the most likely scenario is maybe a month and a half. Like I said, up to 28% owned on Yahoo is Roman Anthony. So I think if you can stash him, do it now. If you're in an unfortunate spot where you're backed up with injuries and you kind of just need the production, wait it out. But don't wait too long, because if you start hearing Roman Anthony's getting hot, hitting home runs down there, the batting average starts climbing up. That's where we're jumping in, right? That's where we definitely need to stash him. So Roman Anthony, number one prospect in all of baseball, Boston Red Sox outfielder, right? Let's move into this next guy. I told you I got a couple of Dodgers prospects coming to you guys, and here is the first one. It's Hyeseong Kim. And Hyeseong Kim is interesting, right? And I'm not talking about Ha-Sung Kim. For all of you guys on the audio, this is Hyeseong Kim. Comes over to the Dodgers from Japan. And boy, is he raking in AAA right now. 65 plate appearances. He's hitting .293 with 3 homers, 7 doubles, a triple, 16 runs, 13 RBIs, and 4 steals. Boy, can Hyeseong Kim hit. Now, he's almost in the same situation as Roman Anthony, right? Where there's not like a firm spot where he really jumps in unless they get him in the outfield, right? Unless maybe it's for Pajas or, one of the struggling vets on that team, and they figure out the way to move guys around properly. Because, back in, the KBO, Korean Baseball League, Hyeseong Kim always hit for average, never really showed off a lot of pop. So, it's kind of surprising. Already got 3 homers here, but been a big steals guy, has a 46 steal season over there in the KBO, 34 steal season, a couple other 30 steal seasons. So he's got some speed. So I think we're looking at another guy like 18 homers, 30 plus steals. And this is just, full season we're talking about, projection. 285 batting average, and can give you some runs and RBIs potentially on this Dodgers team. Hyeseong Kim is 11% owned on Yahoo. Not sure if I mentioned that. But also has second and short eligibility, which makes him super interesting, right? For me, not a stash right this second, but, you hear about a Dodgers injury, you hear any sort of, rumblings that Kim might be getting the call, and I like him. I love the mixed eligibility with second and short, and I just love the lineup he's in, and I love that he's mashing down in the minors. So Hyeseong Kim, definitely worth at least adding to watch list now. Let's move on to this next guy. Let's talk about his teammate. Let's talk about Dalton Rushing. Dalton Rushing already getting that catcher outfielder eligibility on Yahoo. Love to see that. I believe they've been giving him some more opportunities in the outfield over the past, year or so, which is cool because, came up as a catcher prospect, and it just never really looked like Will Smith was ever, giving up that job over there in LA. So, they had to figure out something for, the young hitting prospect. And it could be interesting. It's an interesting profile here with Rushing. With Rushing, he's the second, prospect in the Dodger system. Actually, the first, if you don't count Sasaki, which I'm not going to count Sasaki anymore because, he's up in the big. So number 1 Dodgers prospect, Dalton Rushing, which we're talking about once again. He's got some pop, not really too far above average in anything else. Plays some, decent defense as well. Has a decent arm. In the minors, doing pretty solid so far through his first 10 games, 278 batting average. Through 36 at-bats with 7 runs, a triple, a homer, 4 RBIs, 5 walks to 15 strikeouts. I could see, them leaving him down there for a little bit longer, but he's 24. It's kind of almost the point where you see the Dodgers trading a guy like Rushing at the All-Star break, like they did with the Michael Busch. I could see something like that potentially happening, right? And if he does, just remember the name. Dalton Rushing could be very interesting for fantasy if he winds up in the right situation, whether it's with the Dodgers or not. I love on Yahoo, though, that he does have that catcher eligibility, because if Rushing's playing outfield every day, he's a cheat code at catcher. And that's if he's hitting good, though. Let's move on to this next guy. Let's talk about Jack Caglione. Interesting guy here, right? Flying up prospect charts, as a high-end, pick a couple of years ago, 21st prospect overall. And, just a guy that could be really good. 6th overall, to be exact. 6'5", 250, mountain of a man, raking so far through his first 9 games in AA this season. Caglione hitting 289 with a couple of doubles, 3 homers, 14 RBIs already, 5 walks to 10 strikeouts. The eyes looking great. The thing is just where does he fit in, right? It's tough because he plays first. They got the pass squatch over there. Maybe they figure out a way to move things around. I just can't see Caglione and Pasquantino in the lineup together with one clogging up DH and the other, playing first. And not like there's a lot of mouths to feed over there because, India's been DHing a bit, with Massey at second. So it's not like there's a huge block, but, Caglione's still young. We want to see him develop a bit more at 22, but has all the tools in the making of an all-star. So Caglione, just a name to remember. Once again, Jack Caglione, Kansas City Royals, definitely keep an eye on it. Let's finish with a little bonus guy here. And the thing with this guy is he's banged up, but want to mention the name Chase DeLauter, a name to buy into for dynasty and keeper leagues, right? If you're in a dynasty or keeper league and, he's owned, you could probably get him for super cheap right now. Plays for those Cleveland Guardians, has such a great hit tool, has a little bit of speed, a little bit of pop. I feel like he's like an Ivan Herrera type of guy that might be able to grow into a little bit more of the pop, right? Because he is 6'3", 235 at 23 years old. Injuries have been the thing with Chase DeLauter, right? Just to give you an example, back in 2023, 57 games, hit 355 over those 57 games, which was 214 at bats, 35 runs, 5 homers, 39 RBIs, 23 walks to 30 strikeouts, 6 steals. So it could be an interesting profile, especially for us fantasy baseball players. I think the power is a bit plus. Like I said, the speed could be interesting. He's got a really good hit tool. I think the hit tool is underrated for a guy that could be really useful. Not only for the Guardians, but for us. But guys, with that being said, that is all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. And shout out to our everydayers and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. But guys, until next time, so